All right. So, hello and welcome, everyone. We are back with yet another LinkedIn Live for all of you. And today's topic is going to be a very, very interesting, something that I think even I find I'm very enamored with, at least personally, which is about what will work look like in the future? And will the very concept of work change in the future or not? And this stems from, I think, just a few reports that I was recently reading, where people do not believe in being married to a particular designation, a particular job role type, or forget a company for that matter. And things are changing rapidly thanks to the internet, especially if you see back in the not back in the west, sorry, during the pandemic, a lot of people started taking their creative side a lot more seriously, and people started figuring out ways that we could go ahead and make a business out of it. So that's probably from where this entire session is coming into. And today, to answer a lot of our questions on the future of work, is the gig economy big enough? Is the creator economy big enough? How do people, start off with their gig, and how do they make a sustainable a livelihood out of it? Not livelihood, a career out of it. We have with us Mukul Rustagi, and I'm super excited about it because Mukul is building what I believe as one of the infrastructure to support the future of work. So Mukul he calls himself the janitor of culture. Mukul, is that what you call yourself?
Yeah, I want to become that. So learning every day, still far.
So and it's amazing. I mean, ClassPlus literally helps you guys if you are a creator and looking to scale up. It provides that platform for you guys to scale up. So, super excited to have you here, and thank you so much, Mukul, for doing this with us. Uh,
Thank you, Malika. It's a learning, so hopefully excited too.
So let's get started off. Let's hear about you from yourself. So yes, why don't you tell us like what makes Mukul Mukul, and what made you start Class Plus?
I think we essentially over the past 1 or 2 years post pandemic, obviously everyone has known, and everyone thinks that they should get a lion's share in consumer markets. But to be honest, it has not always been this way. I think a few tailwinds which have really supported edtech over the last 2 to 3 years, if I put out this, internet becoming the mainstream consumption has helped us supremely well. In India, I think India is the country in the world which has the cheapest internet today. And what's even more surprising is that almost two-thirds of the people who use internet in India today are essentially using it on mobile for the first time ever. And mobile is supremely accessible, supremely portable. So I think that entire experience and the enablement of the ecosystem that they can access internet supremely cheaper is something which has benefited tech really well. Exams and all gone online supremely well. That's been like 3 4 years. And over the years, we have seen, and especially pandemic was a tipping point for everybody, because people for the first time actually, like whether it's teachers or students, they realize that they can still live with online for the first time. I am, by the way, still big believer of offline. So I don't think that online in edtech can actually replace offline. I am very, very proud to say and very strong on the thesis that offline will still thrive. But I think, yeah, an online one can be a great enabler, and we'll see hybrid of this going forwards. So how we entered into this was that we have been doing edtech for the last 5 6 years now. We are a company, and we tried different models, moved out of it. We started ClassPlus in 2018, and the dream was very simple. Like we could find local coaching institutes in every. I coming from middle class background, I've studied in some of those coaching institutes myself, and I knew that they had a great aura in their locality. They were great teachers, but they could never grow beyond a point, right? I always used to see them spending time on tasks such as like that was the first point when I saw them spending tasks which are so menial, and which somebody else can actually do. But they're still grading papers and sending out messages. I did not think that was the best time. Use of time. That's how we first started ClassPlus. Over there, we started appreciating the fact that these local coaching centers are supremely hardworking entrepreneurs. They're not educators at all. They're educators plus content experts plus relationship experts plus accounting experts plus marketing experts. And on top of that, they run a small business profitably. So we said that this is entrepreneurship. in its truest form. And you could see like whether we could see coaching institutes run by small like college dropouts to somebody who's been doing that for 20 years to somebody who's running a large chain. And we saw that this is the deepest pool of entrepreneurship that actually exists in India, apart from the retail one. And I think from that point, I think enabling entrepreneurs to scale their businesses has become a common theme for ClassPlus. And over the years, over the last 1.5 years, we have seen creators who are probably like either they are doing it, they might not be academic stuff, but either they would be running career counseling workshops or they would be teaching something like NLP or some other skill or mainly just language training. And we could see that we started seeing that educators is actually a subset of creator economy. And again, we think that creators are being entrepreneurs. They understand the persona of their audiences really well, and they do everything on their own. So ClassPlus stands for building infrastructure for entrepreneurs of today and tomorrow. And yeah, that is so. Every time we find an entrepreneur, we think that if our product can help him grow, and that's the thesis and the genesis behind it.
That's such an amazing thought, and I come, even I'm from a middle class background, but yes, I've always learned to kind of question what's happening, and that those questions have kind of led me to believe that anything that acts as an enabler is probably set for the future. So I'm hoping the same stands true for Class Plus too, and we're able to see a lot more of Class Plus in the future too. But yes, for people who are thinking of getting into the creative economy, like what do you think is the most important thing for them if someone comes up, and this I see a lot of people, right? Even my, like, some of my younger cousins, when I ask them like what do you want to do when you become, no one says teacher, doctor, a lawyer and stuff like that anymore. Now they say that they want to become an influencer, they want to become a creator. While that passion is, I agree, something that's really really great, but if you have to make a career out of it, and if you're very serious about it, what do you think are some of the things that people should be doing in order to make sure they're building a sustainable career over there?
Yeah. So actually, most of the creators that I've personally spoken to, we essentially bucket them into four categories. And the first one is people who are doing it just as a hobby and a, like a side gig because they love it, right? Even when creator economy was not there, people were still posting stuff on Facebook. They were still getting likes. They were still interacting. They were still producing short videos on YouTube. Like that has always been there. Now, over the last 2 years, we have seen that there are people who are able to do full time. Like they're able to morph their lives into content creators as full time, and probably they're the ones who can manage some of their brand partnerships or some of their affiliate channels. And yeah, that's how they become the third category is basically the people who essentially take this as a full-time business. Like their followership grows beyond a point and their content resonates really well and they figured a way out of to monetize, and these are the ones who become stars. And then the fourth category essentially uh, is the already existing stars, whether it's sportsmen, whether it's actors, or whether it's anybody else or a famous author who already has a very strong mass of critical following. So I think
Hmm.
most of the people that you are essentially speaking to is about the first two brackets, and what essentially is really now to your question that what do they really need in order to become a business in themselves. So I think. The most useful asset of any creator is their understanding of their consumer bases and the understanding of their fan bases. Now essentially once you want to monetize your fan bases, because I've seen like creators essentially they can obviously do brand partnerships and all those other things, but at the end when you do brand partnerships you might essentially be just a billboard or a digital advertisement for that brand, which I think
Yeah.
is fine. It's not bad because it gives you the initial push. But I think creators in itself have so much more to offer because they understand their consumer phenomena. And I think in order for them, and by the way, like I read this somewhere, almost like 20-25% of the fan base is actually uh, are ready to pay for exclusive content from creators. Now that is extremely high.
Wow.
So that means that they really trust their creator. And what social media has done is that now the followership of a creator is not really limited by the geography or the age or the vernacularity or the color of the entire thing that they do, right? Or they preach, right? So I think the first thing that they really need is an infrastructure, because see, I know that being a creator is a hard job. Um, You essentially have to produce content. You essentially have to manage your community. You essentially have to engage them at periodic times. And on top of that, you're always finding out ways to monetize and payments and all. So I think communication, content delivery, and commerce are really, really important aspects of this. And I think for that, the first thing that they really need is an infrastructure which can solve them it for them. Because otherwise, they will still end up becoming the old age tuition teachers who end up doing work in the most of their who end up spending most of their time in back end office work. So I think that is where we also come in place. So our product essentially allows any creator to launch their online mobile app, right? Which is basically their own learning destination, which they can exclusively search and serve their student and fan bases, and like serve them with, let's say, exclusive content or whatever else. And I think starting out from there, then there are different levels of efficiencies that every creator needs. But I think a basic infrastructure on what is your platform, because I think the end goal for us is to transform a solo creator into a full-time business, right? And if you're evolving into a full-time business, you definitely need an infrastructure to run it.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. Just to reiterate for those who joined in late, so there are three parts what you mentioned. First is, of course, the content that you create. The next part that comes in is, how you engage with your audience and build a community. Because, like you mentioned, some amazing stats that your community is probably more willing to pay for the product or the services that you launch. So that brings us to the third part, which is how you go about monetizing it. So I think that was a beautiful, beautiful framework there. But because you mentioned that the content creators have a good pulse on what is it that their audience or their community wants, I think I would want to go back, take a step back, and ask you, what is the ideal consumer for you at ClassPlus? So what is your ClassPlus's ideal consumer base?
So I think we, being a horizontal SaaS infrastructure, we fortunately are not restricted. So we see multiple genres and personas of creators who are using ClassPlus today. So on one hand, we see extremely academic educators who might be teaching for an IIT JEE, and then we would see somebody who's probably teaching for a UPSC kind of an exam, a government test prep. On the other hand, we would be seeing somebody who's running their photography classes on the platform, to somebody who's teaching, let's say, how to bake beautiful cakes on the platform. And then there would be somebody who would be running their public speaking workshops using the platform. So I think I myself get baffled when I see that the number of different personas of creators that use ClassPlus today to launch their online teaching businesses, because we actually never thought of it, very honestly. Like when we started ClassPlus, we had not imagined this to be a use case. In fact, for the first few months, we still do not really speak about how creators are leveraging. But today I can tell you, like, non-academic creators are leveraging a significant part of the platform and the business. So I think this entire rise, anybody who wants to run anything, anybody who wants to launch their online teaching business, is immaterial of what they teach, which language they teach, whether it's a live cohort, whether it's a recorded one, whether they're running assessments, whether they're just teaching through PDFs. It does not matter. As long as you want to monetize your online fan bases. And by the way, a beautiful thing, most of this monetization that creators actually do is not just for their lifestyle and their spending habits. Most of these creators, or whatever money they make or whatever earnings they gather, they actually go back and reinvest that into their content, and they start doing other things so that their end audiences uh, get access to like a much higher quality and variety of stuff. So I think that is a beautiful part that we see, that this is not, like, creators are not doing this just to make money. Like, that is fine. But even beyond that, I see them reinvesting large pools of their profit into making higher quality and higher variety of content for their fan bases, and that is why I think like their fan bases are so loyal, right? So yeah, that's how we see it.
I think I completely echo with what you just said. I don't think content creators, yes, of course, some of them do make a lot of money that goes into sustaining their lifestyle, but a lot of them put in that effort and reinvest into their content. And I keep thinking every time that if someone just paid for all the detailed articles and analysis I wrote, I would be able to get access to so many other DBs to enhance the amount of work that I do. So yes, you may find a customer in me already, Mukul, and may give plus a try. But that aside, I see Vashak is agreeing with what you were just saying, that you have to keep a track of your content, what works, and then build upon that. So just piggybacking off of what the comment that Varsha has made, at ClassPlus, do you guys have a way of tracking what has worked, what has not worked? Like, do you provide that sort of an analytics as well?
Yeah, so do we do have access, and we do have a very very deep knowledge pool of what really works for any creator. But that being said, when a creator gets onboarded onto ClassPlus, they are always in charge of what they want to do. So unlike any other platform in the country, I will never go and tell a creator that you
For
have to
some
do.
reason, Mukul, your volume kind of dropped after you readjusted your laptop.
Is this better now?
Yes, yes, you're back on.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, unlike a lot of other platforms in the country, we would never go and force a creator to do something, because the moment you do that, you are essentially snatching the freedom and entrepreneurship and the creativity angle of that creator. So our job is essentially that even though we have very deep pools of knowledge, because we see thousands of creators every day, we know what works, we know what doesn't work, but our the cultural value of ClassPlus is that we will pass all of that to a creator in a suggestive format. Now, whether they want to absorb it, whether they want to take a cue from it, or whether they think that this is trash and we should keep on doing our own, I think that is something that we leave completely in the hands of the creator, and that is why our product is also like every creator gets their own mobile learning destination, like their own branded app, as you would say, because we essentially want to foster their entrepreneurship rather than us, because essentially their communities love them, and because there are creators, there is class plus, vice the, rather than the other way around. We really respect the freedom and the entrepreneurship of creators, and that's why we let them do whatever they want. But yes, our job is to help them grow, so we keep a very consultative approach on what they can do, but we don't force that.
That's interesting because I do know of a few platforms where you essentially it's like you have to it becomes a job at the end of the day, and I think a lot of people who are getting into the gig or the creator economy are doing it to get out of the rut of a job. So I think that that's a very great distinction, and that also boils down to what Vasha is saying. The first thing in the process is to know your audience, and you've kind of really stepped into that. You kind of just quite a personal question, but have you been a creator, or have you had that before got into ClassPlus, or was ClassPlus your first?
Absolutely not. I'm not a creator. In fact, I'm supremely social media shy. So, in fact, I actually tried creating. I don't. It doesn't work out for me. Yes, over the past few weeks and months, I've definitely been inspired by some of our customers itself. But then, and this is a very personal thing. I had two choices. Either I can become a content creator and create my own brand, or I can
Hmm.
reinvest that time into the company and I can help thousands of other brands grow. I think I would choose the latter. And only and only when we are done doing that enablement of thousands of creators would I essentially turn a content creator. I don't think until then it's the best use of my time. So I would,
That is
I'm
that
happy to be
is
on the backstage and build for creators rather than be a creator myself.
so you're more like the Chanakya, the king behind the king. So you're like the king maker there.
No, no. I would rather say we are the AWS behind the product that creators are launching. So you will never be able to touch AWS. You can't feel AWS, but it's right there, standing beside you. And I hope we become
uh,
something similar.
Aditya has a very interesting question, and hey, Aditya, welcome to the live. Glad to see you there. But he has an interesting question that if you are giving the entire freedom to your content creators, and I think as a content creator, even I can understand where he's coming from. Will that dilute your the organization's command over the supply chain? And I think where he's coming from is that a lot of content creators are not very consistent with the content format that they put out. So like if you are giving them the entire liberty, ki, yeah, do it at your pace, do what you want to do, will that dilute the platform?
No, the platform actually doesn't work like that. So think of it this way. Um, we are essentially a technology infrastructure that they get access to. So the complete, so if a creator does really, really well, the complete reward profile goes back to the creator.
Hmm.
And if they do not really do well, even the risk profile goes back to the creator. So we are not the ones who are bringing extra learners. Now this happens, what Aditya said happens. If let's say I was bringing the demand for the creators on my using my tools. But in our case, the consumers, the creators have the full liberty to serve their own audiences. So whether it's good or whether it's bad, like creators take the entire onus of that, and that is why I call them entrepreneurs, right? Because they are responsible and they're very very mature enough to actually be very consistent and be very motivated to serve their audiences the best. So, like, we are just enablers who are standing behind them. But the show is run by the creators, and that's where they get access to all the good and bad of
Makes sense, makes sense. And I think this also ties back to the research that you were talking about before. That people do want to pay for what their favorite creator or favorite influencer is selling to them, the product or service that is theirs. And just taking a step back from just, educator or content space, if you see, the same thing has kind of played out on the fashion and personal care space as well. A lot of fashionistas and all of them have started launching their own brands over there, and that's picked up really, really well. So I think if you have that follower base, you would be able to, monetize on it eventually. Which kind of brings me to the question that Rajat had. So which is and it's kind. I'm okay if you don't take it up also. But he's asking like which platform is the best to monetize, and what are the monetization techniques are possible other than ads? Because YouTube's monetization policy is, let's admit it, it's quite the payout is quite poor. I've been doing it for a year and now I've gotten frustrated. I think I'll just stick to LinkedIn where things are free. So yeah, but yes, over to you, Mukul.
So I think I have a very interesting. You don't monetize a platform; you monetize your audience. And on what platform you should be is directly correlated with the audience that you want to serve. For example, I'll tell you in USA, I was reading this. Under the age, if your followership, if your fan base, or if your community is under the age of 18, TikTok works the best for you. If your
Yeah.
community is actually between 18 and 44, in the US, and by the way, this is not India because of many other reasons. Instagram works the best there, and if your audience is actually above 44, YouTube works the best for them. Right? So I think it like social media or any other platform is just a route to attract and gather and engage and entertain your community. I think that is independent. A creator would essentially figure out where their communities are the most present, and essentially the platforms and like these social platforms will not have very great policies, or they might not have the right infrastructure that a creator would be needing. Like they do a lot of awesome work already for those creators, but that is where ClassPlus comes in. So, immaterial of what platform do you use, whether you use an Insta or whether you use a YouTube or whether you use a TikTok, you essentially can bring your entire community to the product that ClassPlus will give you by your own name, and you can serve, engage, monetize, and create for them in an exclusive silo itself. So yeah, for if there's anybody who thinks that they're not really getting the best out of what they're creating, uh, that's where we come in, and that's the reason why we exist. So,
So, just to add a little more nuance to that, to the answer that Mukul's given, Rajat, think of the social media platform as the top of your funnel. This is where, and I'm again projecting what Varsha had said, it's very important to know your audience. Again, use the framework that Mukul just mentioned, segregated by age to figure out which platform is the best for you over there. Once you know your audience and you're able to build on that, I think there other you start monetizing your audience and not monetizing the platform. That was a great point. I'm going to remember this and probably put up a post on this as well, giving you credits, Mukul, that you don't monetize the platform, you monetize the audience. That's drilled into my head now. But there's another question that's come in from Vikas. So Vikas is asking, can content creation be a part-time job? And how do you evaluate the earning model for, you know, a content creation sort of a job? What's your take on this?
There's only one way to evaluate that, and that is by actually doing it. And once you do it, then that answers your first question, that can content creation be a part-time job. And once the answer to that is a yes, comes the next question, which you've not asked, which is, can it be a full-time? So it's a gradual pace, right? So you'll start with basically first you'll make content, then you'll choose a platform, then you'll grow your community, then you'll do it part-time. I don't think majority of the creators still do it as a full-time income. Uh, and people who do it as a full-time income also, there have been a lot of cases where they bend, and they feel very uncomfortable, and because they have a supremely high, like, creating content is anyway, it's a high pressure thing, like, coming up with content, there's something called a writer's fatigue or a creative pressure, right? Which a lot of creators go through. The point is that if someone is doing this just to make money, there's a very high chance that they will not end up making money, right? Only people who actually enjoy doing it, and um, like they have a knack for it, will essentially make money in the long run. I have not seen many creators who just wanted to make money come, and even if they make money for a few weeks, I think their demand plateaus after that, because then every action that they do, or every story that they put, or every content that they put out, that's only and only for money. It's like that you have a finite tree and you are picking up all fruits of that. But if your tree is not growing, the number of fruits you can pick up is actually absolutely finite, right? So I think the growing the community is a bigger challenge and a bigger task, rather than thinking that what content would actually sell.
Oh my God, that analogy was so very powerful. You know, like if you should have an infinite tree before you can start picking up all the fruits. That's a great takeaway, at least for me personally. But Vikas, just giving you two examples of two completely different people, and because I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, there are going to be people on LinkedIn only. So one of them, I hope she's okay with me naming her on the platform, Vanshi Mehta. She started out with creating a lot of content on LinkedIn as a part-time job, but then slowly she realized that she was getting a lot of leads through LinkedIn, through the content that she was creating on LinkedIn. And so she took like a call with her, like she went back, ruminated a lot on it. And her mentor in life basically told her that Vanshi, I think you should go for it. And she's become a full-time, like she started out as a content creator and now full-time. She likes to call herself a solopreneur. So yes, she's done that now, and I think that's a very sustainable, and she's doing it for a while. She's been doing it for almost 2 years now. So I think it's quite sustainable. She's doing quite well for herself, and I'm very proud to be one of her LinkedIn friends as well. That is one case. Another case is I probably won't name him because he's still working in another organization, and he uses his content gigs as a side gig and gets a good amount of money from there too. So much so that even he is to an extent contemplating. But yes, he's not the kind of guy who just jump in and say one fine day that hey, I'm going to start being a full-time content creator. He is building the infrastructure, like what like what Mukul was talking about. He is going ahead building that entire funnel. He's figuring out the entire funnel, figuring out how much of time he needs to give to content versus monetizing his audience over there in the side. And if those numbers work out for him, I think ultimately you need to have a sense of your audience also. And if that works out for you, then yes, do give it a go. But I would always say that all of us have a lot of content within us. We underestimate our potential to create content. Mukul, this goes for you too. I'm glad you're doing this live with me because I'm getting so many nuggets of information here. But yes, do. I think everyone should at one point in time at least try experimenting with the kind of content that is most comfortable for them. So,
Absolutely, the world is full of. I think all of us can be solopreneurs to start with, and if all goes well, you can actually turn it into a lifestyle business at least.
absolutely. So that brings me to another kind of personal question. What really drew you to entrepreneurship? Like, what was your, how did you know that this was your calling?
No, actually, we loved edtech. We loved enabling. So we knew that you, like we, for some strange reason, I think me and Bhasu, my co-founder, we always used to understand the pulse of educators better than the pulse of students, right? So we realized that nobody was building for educators. Like everyone was building just for like learners, and people were actually having debates of whether like creators and educators can be replaced with technology, which by the way I find it absurd. I don't think you can replace with humans with technology. You can still replace
Absolutely.
decisions, but you cannot replace the chemistry and the relationships. So and we saw that nobody was actually building for educators and all, and very honestly it was not even glamorous because you essentially are in the background. So it was a hard job. We said nobody else is doing it. Why don't we do it? Once we entered into the market, we could see the impact. Educators were supremely happy because they could grow so much. They finally could actually use one platform to solve all their needs. They could reach out to students outside their localities through their own learning apps, own mobile apps, and they could essentially become a brand outside their cities. And once we saw that happen, we essentially saw that we were helping out entrepreneurs. Like these were local entrepreneurs. And once like enabling entrepreneurs is probably the best fulfilling thing out there because you sleep very peacefully because you know that you've done something good. And there are a lot of businesses running on the platform, right? So I think that gave us a kick. And once we decided we wanted to do that, we never really looked back. And today, that segment has grown from not just hardcore academic educators to also non-academic educators, and now to actually everybody who wants to serve their online basis and give them great quality content while monetizing it so that they can build better for their communities. So I think yeah, you will see ClassPlus as the you can actually call us the CTO behind every CTO or CPO behind every content creator in the world, and we essentially want every content creator to launch their online teaching business using ClassPlus so that they take care of their community while we take care of everything else. So that is what we love doing.
That's super amazing, and that just reminded me of a couple of things that I've seen around people as well, especially people who've built very great or successful or businesses. Is that they don't they actually identify what, and I think this is a concept most of us will be familiar with. They identify the blue ocean within a red ocean. So the red ocean in this case, the growing ocean in this case was your edtech space, and the red ocean was all the edtech platforms that were coming up, which was student focused. And you guys took the other way around, which was the blue ocean over there, which was focusing primarily on the educators. So you always have to, yes, if a space is heating up, if a space is growing up, it's good to get your feet into it, but you also need to know what differentiates you from the others. Otherwise, what's to say that? And this is something that even I keep telling everyone else. Don't try to be the next Google. Don't try to be the next Netflix. Try to be the first you. And I think that's what you guys are also trying to do at Class Plus as well. Every creator, every educator who comes onto your platform is a new them. It's the first of them over there on that platform. So I think that's a very powerful message to give out there as well. Don't try to mimic what's already happening. Be the best of you. So great point on that. I also, so this was something that someone else, one of my friends reminded me on my WhatsApp chat. I was recently just talking. So I'm someone who loves to read, and I read a lot. And I'd recently written that if there was a way for me to, and a lot of my content also comes from the books that I read. So, and I was just offhand, just kidding around that there should be a job that pays people to read. So is there something that Class Plus is planning to build for people like me who love to read, who love to discuss what they've read, and how do you think we can try monetizing our reading habits or our content habits that way?
That, hello.
So but that's jokes
Sorry.
aside. I think there's
Sorry, I
another
lost the
question.
internet. Yeah.
Sorry, Mukul.
No, I just lost the internet for a couple of seconds. It's fine now. Totally fine.
Ah, all right. So there are a few more questions, and this is again from Aditya again. And his question is more on, so many organizations operating in the gig space which have literally zero switching costs. You can have like 10 different apps, gig apps on your phone, and whichever one gives you a better return, you can switch on to them. So how do you motivate your consumers, your partners to stay on with Class Plus and not move on to a competitor's product? I think this is a very interesting question.
See, there are only two ways to do that: build a great product and take care of your customers. I don't think there is any other way. And that is what I tell my teams also. Just because your competitor would be building five other things, uh, doesn't really cut it with us. We respect our competitors, but doesn't mean we'll ape them. If we had to ape them, we would not call ourselves unique, right? So each of us has our own thesis. Each of us has our own journey. But the commonalities of those journeys are essentially only to build a great product and take care of your customers. I think there is no other, and I think that is why I say empathy and relationships are bigger modes than capital itself. So that's, that is at
That's
least how we like to think at ClassPlus.
By the way, I can testify to the fact that your team does focus a lot on relationships. I've been talking a lot to Siddhi, and I know I keep mentioning Siddhi on and off on in this conversation. Just probably pin one of her comments that she's done here. But she's been a great help. Even though I did tell Siddhi that I do not see myself as someone who can become an educator. I don't have the patience for that, quite honestly. But that's on me. But even then, Siddhi's gone out of her way to make me feel like she's not just someone at Class Plus. She's someone who's a friend. So the fact that you're building that culture around your organization, I think that's a great thing. So just wanted to give a like a pat on your back for you guys to do this.
The
But
team does the team does 99% of the hard work. We are just lucky to have our faces across, and I really believe that when I say that.
all right. So I think even Nikhil has the same question as me. And even so, Nikhil is again another friend of mine from LinkedIn who also happens to read a lot. So how do you think can people like us who are like bookworms and kind of don't do anything other than just read books all day long, is there a way for us to monetize our hobby?
No, as long as your hobby is not creating an outcome for somebody else, I don't think. There has to be like you have to find out but who's the customer, right? So unless and until there's a customer for your product, which is your hobby, like, how can you actually?
Very true. But Nikhil, I am going to touch base with you. I know I've been saying this for a while, but expect a ping from me soon. Let's brainstorm, and maybe we can also pull Mukul into this and help us with some ideas, bounce some ideas off over there. But I'm just really impressed by the clarity of thought that you guys at Class Plus exhibit already. So just if you don't mind, if you could just share a few success stories from Class Plus, maybe the initial days or maybe even a recent success story.
Uh, so I'll tell you success stories how we measure it. For example, there is an educator in Dehradun who essentially used to teach around 350 and 400 offline students. Like, um, typical 47-year-old guy does not care about technology, thinks he's the best, is also one of the best in that area. Uh, Threatened to leave our platform 5 times in 6 weeks during one time. Um, because we were very young and it was a very good platform at that time. First one ever for people. Today, that guy actually teaches more than 50,000 students.
Wow.
He was a single educator. He now hired 13 other educators, and they run a network company, 40 one success story. Um, then secondly, then I'll tell you some more things. So there was this incident where there was an educator uh, who were couriering something. I think it was a Diwali gift or some New Year gift, something we were couriering actually, right? Which we sent to all of our customers. And we asked for his address, and he gave us a very two-word address, like post office and some word. And we said that, don't you really have a proper address? And he said that I'm living in a very small village which has 10, 15 villages, but I have earned enough over the last one year. So the next year, I'm probably thinking of buying a house in the city so that I can have a proper address, right? And then there are many other such stories, right? Then there's somebody who was actually teaching stock market. Who was actually I spoke to one of the teachers who was actually trading intraday for the last 3 or 4 years, and then essentially one fine day I think he used Plus Plus, launched something, and over the next 3 months he made more money than he actually ever made over the 3 years of trading. So I think immense success stories. None of this is our success story. I'll be very honest here. These are the success stories of educators themselves. But I know we have a strong part to play in that. Like even though we were on the background and we are cheering them from the sides, I think it was hard that they could happen without Plus Plus. And that being said, we are supremely happy to be in the background while they get all the results of it. But at the end of the day, as I told you, if you have stories which turn around the lifestyle and lives of your customers, uh, then it does not really matter whether you become. It does not really matter whether you become a unicorn or a decacorn. All of these are tags which will come one day, and the next morning it will be completely normal. You won't even feel different. You will wake up the same person. But when these stories happen to you, you wake up very different every single day, and that is the reason. Like I'm still a part of most of the customer groups in ClassPlus because for me the thrill is not about the business growth. That will happen. I can always see dashboards, but more than dashboards or more than dashboards or metrics, what I still love seeing is that how is the product changing the lives and the lifestyles of the creators and educators. And I think that is all that matters. Telling you, like after spending 4 years running a business, seen enough highs and lows, I think at the end of the day this is what makes you happy.
That is so amazing. I mean, all of us, at least, I don't know, maybe the circle that I go with, our successes are literally driven by, what others think of us, or some sort of a numeric target that we have for ourselves. And here, you guys are defining your success literally by the success of others. You guys believe that, enabling others, helping them to do better than what they were already doing is what success to you. So that's like an amazing thought, and I don't think I can, top up that thought with anything, any other question. But yes, any parting words for our audience, especially for people who are still dubious about how they can go about becoming a creator and monetizing their audience.
So one of my favorite brands in the world is Nike, and they have a very sweet way of answering your last question, which is just do it. There's no other way. Just do it.
That is amazing. But with that, I know that we had like only about 45 minutes for you to spare. But really, really, really thank you so much for joining us. I had a great time, lots of learnings. I've taken down notes of a few of the things that you mentioned. And I'm sure I'm going to be revisiting this video again to see if there's any other hidden gem that I missed during the session. So
No,
thank you
that's
so
very kind of
much.
you, Malika. Thank you for asking like super interesting questions. Even I did not realize it's been 45 minutes. I just realized actually 2 minutes back. So thank you for being such a great host and a very kind one at that.
Thank you so much, and really wish to see more of you. Wish to see your content too. So, with that, thank you everyone, and have a great weekend, guys. Bye bye.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.